Well, hey, thanks for coming to my talk. Uh, my name is Robert, and I'm the CEO of Emergent Methods. And our primary product is Ask News. And we're trying to save the publishing industry with grounded synthetic data. And we're going to dive right in. But before I do, I just want to say that there's a whole team behind us, and especially Ellen Tornquist and Wagner Costa Santos. Let's jump in here. So the plight of the modern publisher is, they've been publishing data now for 30 years on the internet, and they've had an ad model that works pretty well. And now we're at a different world where people are using ChatGPT, and ChatGPT may go visit a website on your behalf. At that moment in time, there's no ad revenue for a bot, unfortunately. And so how do we subsidize that publisher data, that journalism, and keep these publishers alive in this new world of AI? Especially with low subscription sales, people are getting the short form content on Google. And the worst is when original voice and expression is used to train LLMs, right? So you've got those court cases between the New York Times and OpenAI, News Corp and Perplexity. Everybody's upset at everybody for using publisher data. So what does the web look like without publishers and journalists? I don't think that's a question that we want the wrong answer to. I think it's pretty well established that journalists and publishers are foundational to everything that we do, including AI agents. Your agent doing whatever it needs to do. If it needs real-time information, objective accuracy of what's going on in the real world, it's going to boil down to a good journalist and a good publisher, real boots on the ground. There are some solutions to the new problem, right? They can direct license deals. So one publisher is trying to license deals with every single AI developer and every single AI agent. It's not super scalable. It's difficult. Good for large publishers getting in bed with large corporations. Not so good for smaller publishers that don't really know where to start. Lately, the Cloudflare AI content market plans are great. I think there's a lot of potential there. I'd like to see where it goes. But it doesn't actually solve the problem we'll see in a second here. There's some other solutions. You got ProRata, and they're trying to basically create ad-filled AI chatbots and then direct that revenue back to publishers. That may be great for B2C, but it's not so great for someone like you trying to build an AI agent that's trying to solve real-world problems, make forecasts on geopolitical risk, and identify technological advanced industries where technological advancements are going to occur. They all suffer the same problem. They're not controlling for that original text and expression. It is lost in every single one of these. It gets lost and it's out in the ether. And as soon as that original text and expression is lost, it's more difficult for that publisher to just continue existing because they've lost the expression that they put a lot of money into building. So what does it mean to bridge publishers and AI agents, right? I think that is the most important point that we're trying to solve with Ask News. Well, the publisher wants to monetize the information. The AI agent just needs the accurate information. The publisher, they're trying to protect original expression. Meanwhile, the AI agent just wants reliable data. You want to build a business on data that you know is going to be there in 5 years, right? A reliable data feed. Token cleanliness on that AI agent side. If you've dumped raw HTML into an LLM, you know it's not the last step of your data processing pipeline. It's most likely one of the first steps and an expensive step and a difficult step. Meanwhile, the publisher doesn't care about that. The publisher cares about getting users that aren't competitive with their original text. The publisher wants low user acquisition effort. They want to just get AI developers to use the information easily. The AI agent just wants a lot of sources, a lot of diversity. These LLMs are incredible at reconciling tons of different data points across thousands of different sources all at the same time. Gemini, we have context windows now up to 1 million tokens. Imagine just how many different sources, how many different perspectives you can pack into that to generate a forecast. It's pretty incredible, the world we live in. Obviously, the AI agent wants natural language API. The publisher doesn't know about natural language APIs. These are small publishers. They've got data on a website, but they're not really sure how the hell to get this to an AI agent. It's just sitting as HTML on a server. Speaking of servers, the server load with these AI agents going directly to scrape the same page over and over is astronomical, and it costs the publisher money. So not only are the publishers losing out on their product, but now they're paying more money to keep the same product up. So obviously there's always more, right? And so this bridge is really important. So how do we build that bridge? Well, that's where grounded synthetic news data comes into play. Take an original news article, remove the narrative voice and journalistic style and original phrasing, but preserve the most important information and enrich the most important information. Add sentiment, add classification, identify geocoordinates, identify entity relationships, all of the contextual pieces that make the LLM build out a better image of what the hell is going on in the real world. That's what the AI agent wants. They don't actually care about that journalistic expression. So that's the big question. How do we do that? How do we preserve that information, build that synthetic data as best we can? So first, we should probably define the ideal synthetic representation of news information. This is called context engineering, which is a big word lately, and I'm really happy to see that is happening. We introduced it and coined that term. Actually, it was in, I think, December 2023 in a different talk. But Dimitrios hosted us on the Vector Space Talks for Quadrant in February 2024, where we talked about context engineering for real-time news distillation. We've been screaming this to the top of the rafters for years now at this point. So let's context engineer the news. Let's do that. What does it even mean? Well, this is pretty obvious. We didn't invent how to understand the news, right? This has been around since 350 AD. The who, what, why, where, when. That's how you really understand. And if you can understand it, you can convey that to an LLM. So what do you really need to understand it? You need the people, the organizations, you need the events, the statements, attributions. You need the published date is really important, right? Like knowing Joe Biden backed out of the race doesn't help me forecast what's going to happen next if it happened 24 hours before the election or 3 months before. It's a big difference, right? So these are pieces of context that are key to avoiding hallucinations, locations, motivations, all of the above. When you scrape that HTML illegally, by the way, you're maybe getting some of this, rarely getting most of it, and just never getting a lot of that. And you don't have a reliable data feed. So everybody loses, just it doesn't make sense. But what if you actually did have all of it? And what if you had more, right? That sounds good. I think we're all on the same page. Let's add more. Let's add knowledge graphs. Let's add source origins and geocoordinates, and let's license and keep the publishers afloat so that next year, when I still need information from that publisher, they're there. Their journalists have boots on the ground for your agent who's trying to make a forecast. What's the TLDR? This is it, right? It's a perfect meme for it. We want token optimized, extra content, LLM ready, objective information. That's it. We don't want this raw HTML, poorly labeled, seeds for hallucination, biased expression, none of that, okay? So how do we build it? We've defined it, that's great. But now let's talk about how we build it. I think that's kind of why we're here. A lot of entity extraction, sentiment analysis, understanding category, correct storage types. Let's talk about how do we actually get to this information. This is not easy, right? You need to follow AP style guide. You need to understand how do you extract statements and evidence and attribution. You need an in-house editor-in-chief, which we have. Someone who has spent 45 years in journalism, understanding how to extract information. This is how you ensure journalistic integrity in that synthetic data point. Classifying topics, very helpful. Sentiment analysis. This helps understand the why, right? I want to know what kind of sentiment is going into this story. Reporting voice, that's huge. That helps the LLM decide whether this is a credible source. Was this a provocative? Was this written in a very provocative way, or was it objective? Was it written subjectively? These are really key data points in context engineering that allow your LLM to do so much magic under the hood. Extracting entities is huge, right? I want to get all of the entities so that the LLM is ready. This is the synthetic data point. The LLM can work with these entities. This is an entity who, and the Joseph Wilson is a doctoral candidate at the University of Toronto. Knowing that character exists is key to your context. We've trained a small language model, an entity extraction model, Gliner to be exact, to do exactly this. And it's small, which enables high throughput, and it's really, really good. And it was the top 20 most downloaded model in 2024. We're really proud of that. Building that model meant understanding how to balance perspectives. If you're going to extract entities from text, you want to be able to get to the entity. A lot of the basic spacey entity extractors are trained on Western names. So they're very good at extracting Western named entities. But as soon as you get to an article in Africa and you're trying to extract an African name, it's less likely to extract it correctly. That's a problem if your goal is objective accuracy in order to build a forecast, a geopolitical forecast. I want to get to all the names. I don't want to just deal with Western names. So how do you train it? That's what we did. We wrote this article. I encourage you to go check it out. It's a great article. Translation, huge. How do you translate properly, right? All of this stuff is huge. Using a good storage unit is great. Quadrant is huge. That's how you can store all of the synthetic text with all of your metadata and enable high-level filtering. Relationships are key. Extracting who did what, who's connected to which place. Here's an example knowledge graph under the hood. You've got Trump and all the connections to Trump across all the different sources. This is how an LLM views information with objective accuracy and gets to truth, right? That's the goal. Is I want to get a high probability forecast for whether or not the tariffs are going to be called off next month. I need to know all of the connections between Trump and all of the countries and industries that are intertwined, right? That's kind of basic. What about bias? That's huge. How do we remove it? We wrote a 2-series set of articles on this in our bias research project. First one was we were trying to find that crazy agenda of DeepSeek that everyone decided to call out immediately. It turns out that DeepSeek, hosted locally, not using their chat interface, is actually not biased, okay? It's actually biased to the Western side, which kind of makes sense because it's a distillation of OpenAI models anyways. But proving it, understanding that it's there, allows us to mitigate it. And let's talk about part 2, Bias Expert. This is another model that we just released. This just got released 2 days ago, actually. We're really excited. This allows you to identify the bias and potentially recommend amelioration for how to improve it. So let's put it all together. A synthetic data point contains all of the most important data in a clean fashion, token optimized, no extraneous HTML crap, with extra additional enrichment. We're talking relationships and sentiment and what else do we have here? The geocoordinates and the key points, the translation. This is what your LLM wants. Your LLM is what it eats. But don't take my word for it. Let's look at the external real-time validations. This is Metaculus. It's a real-time forecasting tournament quarterly where these LLM bots need to answer questions in real time, real forecasts, generate true forecasts about what's going to happen in the military, in geopolitics, in finance, in tech. And there's only one way to get things right and wrong, and it's to actually get it right. There's no gaming a benchmark. There's no answers a priori. It's you make the forecast, you get it right or you don't. And the truth is that other providers are not taking this as seriously, okay? And it shows because basically the whole leaderboard is just people have switched over to Ask News. After 3/4 of this, people stopped even trying to use Perplexity. And now they just switched to Ask News because they want to win money. This isn't really about like, this is just, hey, I have a bot. I want it to be better. I want to make money. I want to forecast the future. Okay. Makes sense. This is ML Ops a conference, and so we should talk about the actual ops behind behind generating that synthetic data. That presentation from February 2024 goes in pretty deep into this, and most of it's totally straight. I mean, I think we talk about Llama 2 because that was the model at the time, but besides that, everything here shows how do you take a lot of articles from a lot of places and store those properly and retrieve those properly. So go check that out. I think you'll like that presentation. But it's not just trying to orchestrate a bunch of LLM calls. It's orchestrating the full system, right? Your reasoning engine and all of the various databases and storage services that are going to help support that system. So let's bring it back. What is it? What is the bridge between these two things? Well, the publisher wants to sell high-value human-seeded information, and the developer just wants to buy the right info at the right time, in the right way, for an extended period of time. And they want that to always occur. The publisher doesn't want to lose control of original expression. And the beauty is that the AI developer doesn't even want the original expression in these high stakes decision-making systems. They just want objective accuracy. In some ways, the original expression is worse because it hasn't been filtered through bias and reporting voice filters and cleaning, all of these pieces of things. This is how the developer actually wants it. They want a clean piece of data. The developer doesn't want to waste time maintaining HTML scrapers and cleaners with hopes and prayers. They'd rather focus on their high stakes decision-making system and let the publisher and Ask News figure out how to get the right data to them at the right time. So which publishers are already signed up? We have a lot. I think we have over 700 or 800 of them. AFP, Agence France Presse, is one of the top, and we're really proud of that. They are really excited about what this means about driving more revenue in a complementary way into the publishing business to help support their vision, which is, hey, journalism. They just want to keep doing journalism. And so, well, all these high stakes decision-making systems that are reliant on AI agents that need real-time info are ready to pay for this sort of good information. That's the beauty of it. How does the royalty distribution work? 50% of all of the royalties go to publishers and are split weighted by surface rate. So anytime an article from a specific publisher surfaces, they get a percentage of that royalty for that month. And the other 50% allows us to maintain overhead and continue our research into bias, which is open source, entity extraction, which is open source, and all of the other tools that we're putting out. Who's using it? We've got a lot. We've got a ton of different examples. A lot of universities, Columbia, George Mason University, Texas. What about some of the scientific discovery platforms? You should check some of these out. These are great. AMAS.tech's really good. They're helping with scientific discovery. And we've got risk assessment from Riley Risk and Prepper.ai. There's a lot of great users who show that, hey, this data is valuable and we're willing to pay publishers to get to it. So I'm not the only one behind this. I'm just kind of presenting for everybody. The team is small but strong, and we're focused on research and helping build the bridge between the publishers and the developers. If you are interested in either being on the publisher side or the developer side of this puzzle and equation, join our Discord. That's the QR code at the bottom left there, or just shoot us a LinkedIn message, and we'll be happy to chat and see if we can help. But I appreciate the attention.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah, love this. This was a lot of great content. Really loved the bits on evaluating the bias in your models, and awesome to see that you've released a model. If folks have questions, feel free to put them in the chat and I'll pass them along. But in the meantime, seems like you've done a lot here. What do you think's next for Ask News? What's the next
Good
big
question.
problem you're tackling?
Yeah, I think the goal now is bring in more publishers and start getting the publishers paid. So kind of simultaneously enlisting publishers and developers at the same time. I think that we're just scratched the tip of the iceberg with what can be done in the quality of the data. And I'm really excited to see as these new tools come out, all of these, as soon as we release a fine tune, there's a new model that's even better that we could fine tune. And so I'm really excited to see just how small and intelligent we can get with the bias extraction system, because that's really key. Having high throughput through a model like that's important, and it really changes what you can forecast and what you can do with the data. So that's
I
where
want
we're
to dig
headed.
into that a little bit. So you said like high throughput on the model is important. Is that because like typically you're going to be using it in like an online setting? Like this wouldn't be like trying to mitigate bias offline with your model, or?
That's a good question, and maybe I didn't touch on it, but the reason we're able to put such an extensive pipeline in front of every data point while maintaining the low latency is because we process 24/7 articles as we're pulling them in, and that's high throughput. We have to process with multiple LLMs on each one, and we're a startup, so the smaller the LLM, the cheaper it is to run. The more articles we can pump through. And we, by the way, part of our agreement with publishers is that it all has to be done on premise. So we're not allowed to process any data using OpenAI or Anthropic, because that would defeat the entire purpose of us protecting the original text by just sending it to OpenAI to get processed. So we have to process it in our cluster.
Can you clarify? I think the term on-prem to me has gotten a little bit ambiguous in AI systems. Like when I hear on-prem, I think like, no, we're running the servers, not using the cloud.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's it. Okay.
Yeah.
So like you're not using AWS or anything even to do this process.
I mean, for processing the data, no. For serving some front end components and stuff, we'll use DigitalOcean. But AWS is far too expensive for us, so we stay far away from it, unfortunately. Although DigitalOcean has been a struggle, so we've migrated away from it. A lot of what we do is just we brought everything back on-prem, but there's a little bit of a risk there. If our data center catches on fire, then we have some problems. So that's the real downside of that. But can always build another one, I guess.
Awesome. Well, thank you for the time. If folks want to connect with you, is there a place they can go do that?
Yeah, come over on LinkedIn. I can toss it into the chat here.
All right.
Basically, it's Robert Caulk, CAULK, as it is here.
Awesome. You heard it here.
Connect with me there.
Robert Caulk on LinkedIn. Awesome.
Appreciate the
Thank you so much for your time. This was incredible.
Ciao, guys.
Take care.